time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the 38th President of the Indiana High School Baseball Coach Association, Coach Steve Stutzman from Elkhart Central High School.
Thanks, Gary. On behalf of the Indiana High School Coaches Association and the Executive Council, I would like to welcome you to tonight's festivities. I want to have a special welcome to the new inductees and their family. Thank you for your dedication to the youth of Indiana. There are a couple people I would like to recognize. The Indiana High School Athletic Association Assistant Commissioner Phil Gardner and his wife Ann. Thank you. I was supposed to make some funny joke, but I can't do this because he's an umpire. The IHSAA umpire, James Gardner. I think this is Robertson, I'm sorry. I think this is his 20th year doing state clinic umpire.
I like it, but he's not my brother.
And also Jeff Luzander from iHigh. He videotaped the press conference this afternoon, and also he's doing the banquet. And it will be on the web at www.ihsaatv.org sometime early next week for you to view. And I know that Gary didn't want me to do this, but I'm going to recognize Gary O'Neill for what he has done in organizing this banquet. Gary, thank you. Also, another former Hall of Famer, Kenny Seitz. He's done tremendous and has worked very hard at our registration in our clinic. Thank you, Kenny. And then one of our founding fathers was our executive director for over 30 years, Bill Jones. Bill, thank you. Then I want to thank all the district reps and all those volunteers for all the committees that we have. Your input and knowledge of the game is invaluable. Your input and having a voice in the association is very important to us. I want to thank all the past presidents and our current executive council. It has been a privilege to work with you this year and for the last 4 years. You guys do a tremendous job, and it's been a privilege to be a part of this. I hope you guys always enjoy this evening. Thank you very much.
As we move along in the festivities, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Coach Shannon Barger of Madison and present the Victory Club District Coach of the Year Awards.
Coach Shane, can you see me now? He makes fun because I'm short, so I want to make sure he can see since he's in the back row. Tonight for the Victory Club Awards, we have 2 Hall of Famers, Glenn Rosenbaum of Union Mills, 1991 inductee, and Paul Spider-Fields of Lafayette, 1979 inductee. We'll be congratulating the recipients along with President Stutzman and Chris McIntyre, the past president from New Albany. Once we read everybody, then we'll have applause for all of those recipients. For the 100-win plateau this year, Matthew Cherry from Fishers, Jeff Klosser, Alexandria, Eric Hisner, Whitco, and Jeremy Jones, Evansville North. For 200 wins, Phil Klusner, Bloomington South, Mark Wheeler, Orleans, .300 win plateau, Brian Kirkhoff, Northeast DuBois. .400 wins, Bob Jones, Edgewood. Kyle Kramer, Terre Haute South. John Nadolny, John Glenn. And Lee Selby, Jay County. For 500 wins, Steve Strayer, Crown Point. For 600 wins, Greg Dykus, Penn, and Phil Webster, Decatur Central. Also this past spring we had a coach at the college level win his 700th game at Huntington University, Coach Mike Frame.
Here. Gonna affect my ERA.
We can give all these guys a round of applause. For the District Coaches of the Year, in District A, Jeff Sandor, Lake Central. District B, Randy Roberts, Washington Township. District C, Greg Dykus, Penn. District D, Jason Garrett, Bishop Dwenger. District E, Kyle Beachy, Northwestern. District F, Brian Dudley of Wapahani, and Sean Lyons of New Path. District G, Scott Cherry, Whiteland. District H, Dave Bradshaw, Jackson-Dell. District I, Brian Hooker, Rochester. District J, Tim Bourdonnais, Lafayette Central Catholic. District K, Rick Cosgray, Lebanon. District L, Jeff Scott, Brebeuf Jesuit. District M, Sean Turner, Terre Haute North.
Your walls are going to fall down if you keep putting stuff.
District N, Joe Decker, Silver Creek. District O, Mark Wheeler, Orleans. And District P, Kurt Welch, Castle. We can give these gentlemen a round of applause. At this time, it is my honor to introduce the IHBCA Executive Director, Brian Abbott of Huntington, to present the IHBCA Jostens Coach of the Year Awards.
Mike Frame from Huntington University is going to be helping out with the award because Mark Flickinger, our normal Jostens person, is not here this evening. Gary, can I move this? All right. This thing doesn't work very well, so don't panic.
It's for short people.
First Coach of the Year we have is the 1A Coach of the Year. It's Coach Chip Sweet from the Shakamak Lakers. In his 21st year, his 2014 record was 27-6. Shakamak defeated Rockville 3-2 for its second state baseball championship and Coach Sweet's first state baseball championship. The Lakers finished the year 27-6. Coach Sweet would like to accept the award on behalf of his players, past and present, his coaching staff,
his school, his community, and his family. Coach Chip Sweet of the Shacklemack Lakers. Class 2A, Coach Brian Dudley from Wapahani. In his 31st year, 2014 record was 30-4. The Wapahani Raiders defeated Evansville Mater Dei 2-0 to win their first state championship. The team's final record, like we said, was 30-4, and the state championship was the first of any for a Delaware County school. Coach Dudley accepts the award on behalf of his players, his assistant coaches, the parents, and Wapahani High School. Coach Brian Dudley from Wapahani. Dave Pishker from Andrean, 35th year. The Andrean 59ers defeated Gibson Southern 6-0 to win their fourth state title in the past 10 years, and Coach Pishker's fourth state Coach of the Year award. Their record was 31-4. Coach Pishker is honored to accept the Summing Award on behalf of his dedicated players, his outstanding coaching staff, Andrean High School, and his wonderful family. I would like to thank Christ, our teacher. Coach Dave Pishker. Class 4A, Justin Keever from the Noblesville Millers. In his 10th year, the Millers defeated Terre Haute North 2-1 on the way to the school's first state championship. This victory also marked Hamilton County's first baseball state championship. Coach Keever's squad also captured the prestigious Hoosier Crossroads Conference crown with a 14-4 record. Coach Keever accepts his first Coach of the Year award on behalf of his outstanding coaching staff, the school, the community, current and former players, and his supportive family. Justin Keever. Let's have one final round of applause for all of the Coach of the Years. I'm going to pass the microphone now to our Executive Assistant, Mr. Phil McIntyre.
How's that? Good evening, everyone. What a great crowd tonight. I would like to, first of all, have us take a moment of silence for 3 Hall of Famers who passed away this past year. Mr. Bill Metcalf, Maryville, 2000. Bill McCool, Lawrenceburg, 2013. And Mr. Lou Giovanni from Columbus East of 2014. Thank you. At this time, I would like to present all the Indiana Baseball Hall of Famers and their spouses that are in attendance tonight. We ask all Hall of Famers to remain standing until all are introduced, and we'll hold our applause to the end. If I forget anybody at the end, I'm going to ask, and please raise your hand, as I apologize in advance if I did not get you on the list. "2014, retired Coach Gary DeHaven from Benton Central, 600 wins. 2014, Coach Dave Bischoff from New Haven, 500 wins and 3 Final Fours. 2013, Coach Jack Campbell from Chesterton, 600 plus wins. 2012, Coach Tim Bourdonnais from Lafayette Central Catholic, 7 state championships. 2012, Coach Ty Calloway from Western, 600 wins and a state championship. 2012, Coach Dan Miller from Highland, 600 wins and 1 state final. 2011, Coach Greg Dykus from Penn, 500 wins and 3 state championships. 2010, Coach John Froach from Crawfordsville, 600 wins and 2 state championships. 2010, Hal Morris from Munster, 15 years playing in the major leagues at first base. 2009, Coach Mike Frame from Huntington University, over 600 wins. 2009, Coach Brian Dudley from Wapani, from 600 wins and a state championship. 2008, Coach Dave Gandolf, Center Grove and Cecina, over 700 wins. 2007, Coach Terry Gobert from Jasper, 5 state championships and over 600 wins. 2007, retired Coach Joe Rademacher from Bar Reeve, 400 wins and a state championship. 2007, Dyer Miller, New Point and Decatur County, 30 years of a professional player and coach. 2006, Coach Dave Pitchker from Andrean, 700 wins and 4 state championships. 2004, retired Coach George Ferris from Taylor and Kokomo, over 600 wins and now is assisting at Indiana Wesleyan. 2003, retired Coach Jim Hughes and his wife, Mary Lou, from Franklin County, over 500 wins. 2002, retired Coach John Wirtz from Indianapolis Roncalli, over 600 wins and state finalists. 2002, retired Coach Paul Grease from Evansville Central, over 400 wins. 2001, retired Coach Kenny Seitz and wife Kathy from Hamilton Southeastern, over 500 wins, and still is helping out in the baseball program at Southeastern. 2000, retired Coach Dennis Cass from Noblesville, over 400 wins. 1998, active coach Jake Burton from McCutcheon, over 700 wins and a state championship. 1996, retired Coach Gary O'Neill, Madison, 600 wins and a state championship. 1994, retired Coach Tim Nante and wife Joyce from Princeton, over 400 wins and a state finalist. 1993, retired high school and college umpire Larry Sigler from Jeffersonville. Strike 1, strike 2, strike 3, you're out. 1992, retired Coach Dick Seiler, Elkhart Memorial, over 500 wins and now is assisting at Bethel College. 1992, retired Coach Don Sherman, Huntington North, over 600 wins and is on the organizing committee of our committee since 1971. 1991, Glenn Rosenbaum from Union Mills, professional baseball player, coach, and front office official for over 40 years in the Chicago White Sox organization. 1990, retired Coach Ray Howard from Jasper, over 300 wins, still assisting Jasper and also the executive director of our own Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame. 1990, retired Coach Don Poole and his wife Dorothy, Jeffersonville, over 500 wins and a state finalist. 1988, retired Coach Don Jennings and wife Luann from Terre Haute North, over 300 wins and a state championship. 1985, retired Coach Dave Alexander from Purdue University, over 400 wins. 1982, retired Coach Bill Jones, Auburn, over 600 wins and a state championship at DeKalb High School, and our IHSBCA Executive Director from 1971 to 2012, also one of the founding coaches of our association in 1971. And in 1979, retired Coach Paul Spider Fields and wife Amelia from Lafayette Jeff, over 400 wins and 2 state championships, and was one of our founding coaches of this wonderful association in 1971. Was there anybody else I missed? Unbelievable, isn't it? Let's give these guys an unbelievable hand.
As we move along, if you don't mind, I would prefer that you turn to page 6 through 10 for our next area of program. This time it gives me great pleasure for Ray Howard, again, 1990 Hall of Famer from Jasper, to present the Hall of Fame inductees.
I'd like to say a special thanks, first of all, to all the gentlemen that I contacted on behalf of these inductees that were willing to share some stories that would go well here and some that can't be told in mixed company. But I certainly appreciate their willingness to share, and hopefully that makes this evening a little better for them. Chip O'Neal Jr. Chipper, as he's affectionately known by some coaches, spent 32 years as a successful coach. However, the success went back farther than that. In high school, he played and captained the 1971 LaPorte State champions, as well as quarterback the football team. Was an MVP in both sports before moving on to Ball State to continue his baseball playing career. Chip spent 11 seasons at the helm of South Bend St. Joe before moving to South Bend Clay for 22 years. He has to be one of the few coaches in the state who took over a head coaching position from an interim coach. Dan Casper was the interim at that time at Clay for Coach Jim Reinbold, and Chip replaced Dan as the head coach. Right off the bat, they won a section. The local media thought that was quite an event and made quite a hullabaloo about it. And when interviewed about the success, Chip always gave credit to the man he directly followed. That speaks volumes to the person that Chip was. The dwarfish weeble. That's what he said. As the only good friends certainly could use and to describe him, was a great storyteller. He was so good, his teams demanded a story after victories. If you look, there's well over 500 of those stories, and I'm sure for these young men on the bus, some of those were probably a little bit askew as well, so no wonder they liked to hear his stories. Often referred to as Indiana's Don Zimmer. Perhaps he might relate one of those stories this evening. But what I would like to know is how you get tossed from a ball game because you made weird faces at an umpire. His good friend and assistant coach for many years, Dan Casper, said this about Chip: to be his assistant was an honor. To be his friend was a blessing. The 170th inductee to the Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame. Please help me welcome Chip O'Neal Jr.
When you get old, you have to have these on. Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the other inductees, Mr. Al Raby, Phil Webster, Bob Schinken, and Jim Reed. We're all in the same boat. We're overwhelmed, to be honest with you. It's quite an honor when your peers look at you in this fashion. Thank you very much. Also, I'd like to thank Mr. Ray Howard from Jasper, and Mr. Gary O'Neill from Madison, Brian Abbott from Huntington, for all the work that they've done, and the whole committee to put this thing together. You can tell it's quite an extravaganza. I'd also like to thank Mr. Steve Stutzman for nominating me, otherwise I wouldn't be up here either. Thank you, Steve. Thirdly, I'd like to thank all my teachers and coaches in high school who influenced me to get into the teaching and coaching profession, to be honest with you. Mr. Dave Kirkby from Lawler, I went there for 1 year because I felt my parents wanted me to have some Catholic education, so I went there. And then I went to LaPorte High School and, under Ken Schreiber and Mr. Dave Parcell and Mr. Dave Reed, assistant coaches. And they were all great leaders and great examples, and gave me the wherewithal to continue on and actually be a teacher and a coach as well. There's actually 4 reasons I'm up here. One is family, one is assistant coaches, want his players. I have a nice table over there, and they want to challenge anybody right now. 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, we'll meet you out in the doggone parking lot. We'll take on anybody. I got a whole crew here, and all we need is some gear. So anyway, and then also umpires, if you can believe that. The game would not happen if we did not have umpires. I just have a couple little stories. You'll have to see me afterwards about the face-making one. That was unbelievable. But first of all, starting with family, and to be successful, you have to have family. And I've been fortunate enough to be married for 39 years to my wife, Linda. We're going to try to make it to November, to make it 40, and maybe the kids will have a little party for us, I don't know. But then I also like to introduce my kids, Lindsay and her husband, Ryan. Actually, Lindsay's my favorite daughter. And of course, she's my only daughter, but she's my favorite. And then, of course, my favorite oldest granddaughter, Caitlin. Thank you, Caitlin. My son, Brian, son Adam, and his significant other, Shay. Michael, my youngest, and his fiancée, Erica. Erica brought her dad, Dennis, and stepmom, Gloria. I appreciate you coming down here. Of course, I have my brother, Pat, and his wife, Carol. And my little sister, my favorite sister, Colleen. And again, she's my only sister, but she's still my favorite. But all my friends and the kids who showed up tonight, thank you very much. Part two, assistant coaches. They didn't coach for me, they coached with me. They were all loyal and dedicated people, and that's the reason I'm up here. I got the good fortune of having my brother coach with me for a couple years before he went over to LaPorte, and then goes down and grabs up Lance Lynn and Mr. Storin, and goes undefeated and wins a state championship for Brownsburg. He never had those players to take care of me, but anyway, he was hot on himself. And then my good friend Dan Casper, he ought to be up for sainthood, to be honest with you. He had to put up with Coach Reinbold for a good number of years, myself for 22 years, one of our former players, Chad Hudnall, for a couple of years, and now he's coaching with Joel Reinbold. So there's a place in heaven for him, I'll guarantee you. And Coach K, our first uniform together, I'll be bringing this to you. Next, number 3, our players. Like I said, I have a whole group over here, and there are many, many more. But the kind of kids I used to have in St. Joe and Clay were dedicated, hard-working kids. The type of kid I had was one young man I cut as a freshman, sophomore, junior, and he still came out as a senior. And he ended up playing third base. He couldn't hit a lick, couldn't run, but that's the reason he was cut for 3 years. He could field and throw the ball pretty well, so he was our third baseman. And we were one run away from getting to the state championship game with him at third base. So maybe I made a mistake those first 3 years, but he's dedicated enough to come back out. That's the kind of kid I had. And then I got advice from Coach Butchkowski, who has passed away now, but and Coach Schreiber both told me, if you get a chance to coach your kids, it's a great honor to do that. And I had that fortune to be able to coach my own kids. And but they also said, if you put them in the lineup, you better make sure they can play. And luckily my boys could play a little bit, so I lucked out there. We also have some good winning percentages with our own kids in the lineup, and Coach Shell's boy, and Coach Casper's son and nephew, and I guess the thing is we probably should have more kids, I guess. But and also, a fourth part of being successful are umpires. And you don't have a game if you don't have umpires. Mr. Robinson used to come up to us and do a game every once in a while, drive all the way from Indianapolis and come up here, up to Clay and do a game for us. But there are some stories out there we could go on to. But one time my good buddy Jim Dermody from Warsaw, we were at Grace College, and luckily it was one of the times we were winning a game with him. And the kid hits a line drive. It's about the bottom of the 6th or 7th inning, whatever. We're up 9-1. Foul ball comes right at his feet and about knocks him down in the coach's box, and here's the home plate umpire. What the heck? And because you know if it's foul, they're supposed to say foul. So anyway, it's a fair ball, and I'm just laughing in my own mine. Luckily, we were up 9-1, so that was fine. But then a good story I had when I was a younger kid. The umpire had sort of a stuttering problem, and I'll never forget this as long as I live. He's down in there. Oh, the hell with the ball! So anyway, I was one pitch closer to getting to first base. But really, the key to success is you start with family. You have assistant coaches. You have players, and you have the umpires take on their responsibilities, and then you have a game. Oh yeah, I want to thank one more thing. My boys reminded me, I'm a Cub fan. Many of my friends know that. I want to take the opportunity to tell you that they informed me that the movie Back to the Future, all right, there was a headlines in the newspaper, and I forgot all about it, but the headlines read, 2015, Chicago Cubs win the World Series. I got to take them for what it's worth. That will happen. All right? And if you don't remember anything, just remember, Cubs win, Cubs win. Thank you very much for everything. I appreciate it.
Mr. Al Raby, 32 years coaching and still working at his craft. He migrated across the Wabash River from Illinois after high school, and he went to college in Evansville and began a coaching career that's still active. I had opportunity to coach against Al in his first coaching stop at Castle High School. It was easy to see then that he was going to enjoy some success as a coach by the way his teams played. A 3-year stop in Boonville preceded a 19-year stint at Jeffersonville, where he was selected to follow in the footsteps of a Hall of Fame coach, Don Poole, who retired and is here this evening. The success continued. Al was also a good basketball coach and was a 12-year assistant to a successful head coach in Jeffersonville, Mike Broughton. They had some great times together and some fun stories. Perhaps Al will recall, in the late 90s, Jeff is at Evansville bossing. It's in the early season, and in the fourth quarter, on the short end of a score by a mere 30 points. Coach Broughton is doing, well, before that, Tom Crean didn't pace that way, but Coach Broughton was doing his Tom Crean pacing along the sidelines, trying to figure out what to do about the poor play that he was watching from his team. Al called to him and said, "Mike, come over here and sit down." So he went down and sat beside him, Al thinking that, or Mike was thinking that Al was going to provide him with something that was going to work to curb this onslaught that was taking place. Coach Broughton got this advice from Al. "Mike, I've been watching the last few minutes and have come to the conclusion it's never too early in the game to think about where we're going to eat when this game's over." A little known fact at Al, we used to have a clinic in Jasper that went on for a good long time, and he'd come from Jeffersonville and set up his recording studio in the back, and I think he probably has the greatest collection of VCR tape from the old Tri-State Baseball Clinic that we used to host down there in Jasper. And at the end of those clinics, there was a joke-telling contest. Some of the winners of that contest are here this evening, and they're in the Hall of Fame. Al has recorded every one to my knowledge, and some are really good. And the clinics might have been okay also. But the jokes were the best. For Mike Broughton, Al was a great coach, and he was an even better friend. The 171st inductee to the Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame. Would you help me welcome Mr. Al Raby?
Thank you very much. Terry Gilbert, you're in the back. Shut your stopwatch off.
6 seconds.
Yeah, just shut it off. It doesn't make any difference. Wait until I get Mike out on the golf course. I want to thank you all for all that voted for me. We talked about it today at the interview thing. It's a great thing to be voted by your peers. Other sports don't do it that way. They have a committee that comes up with people, and if you politically know the right people on the committee, it happens. Here, you're voted by your peers, and that means a lot. There's too many people to thank, and to anybody that I admit, I sincerely apologize. I want to thank everybody. It's just great. The association is fantastic. Brian Abbott, Bill Jones, who is the association, Chris McIntyre, Ray Howard, Gary O'Neill. Everything is just, I mean, it's just unbelievable how you don't have to do anything. Gary calls you, he sets everything up for you. Ray calls you, he sets everything up. I mean, it's just fantastic, and you have to do nothing, and it's great. We have the best organization. I was fortunate enough to be president for a year, and I wasn't the president, Bill Jones was the president. Because anytime I got a phone call, I gave him Bill Jones's number and said, call me. He'll answer any questions. And I greatly appreciate that. My family's here, my wife, Jane, Jimmy Cardwell, I'll talk about Jimmy in a little bit, but Jimmy, we always used to talk, you know, he always used to tell me, you got the greatest wife in the world, because she doesn't care what time you come home, she doesn't care what time you go wherever, it just didn't matter. He would always have to call and say, hey, I'm going to be home in 50, you know, with me. I just said, well, I'll be home when I get home. And that's has to do with being a baseball wife, I guess, and you all know that, it's nothing new. My daughter, Emily, was a swimmer at University of Louisville. I'm extremely proud of her. My assistant can tell you I talk about her all the time to my players. Very dedicated person, and I'm very proud of her. Matt, my son-in-law, I couldn't ask for a greater kid to marry my daughter. He's a Navy SEAL. He defends our country. Our kids do not say a word during the national anthem. They stand there respectfully, and I was not that way 5-6 years ago. I was always one that said, get the national anthem over, let's go play. But until you have somebody in your family defending your country, it means something. And Matt, I thank you for that. My granddaughter, Harper, you can tell how important things are because I'm second to Minnie Mouse. But it's great having her around, and it keeps you going, but it keeps everything in perspective. I had great parents. My mom and dad are no longer with us, but they would drive me to games. I can remember changing clothes. I would work till 5 o'clock. We didn't have much money. We'd work till 5 o'clock. I would change clothes in the back of the car driving to a game, and they were always there for me. I told them on the interview, you know, I still think about watching Field of Dreams and him at the end of the movie saying, Dad, let's have a catch, because that's what it was for my dad. I came from a great baseball town. Addison, Illinois was a great baseball town. You could play baseball from the time you were 5 years old until you were 60. And that was great for me. I loved the game. That came from my dad and everything. And it gave me an opportunity to play. And I wasn't good enough to make a traveling team as a Colt leaguer, but they had a league there in town that you could play at that I got to play. And you developed a love for the game. I had 2 great college coaches. How I got to play in college, I don't know. But I had 2 great college coaches, Wayne Boldinghouse for 3 years and Bobby Hodges for 1. And Joe Rademacher and the Evansville grads can tell you what great people they were. I told them today at the deal we had on the radio, if Wayne Boldinghouse was here today and he told me to run through that wall, I would do it. At 61 years old, I would run through that wall for him. And that just tells you how much
of an impact, I think, as coaches we make to these people. And as you get older, you figure that out. You young guys, you haven't figured that out yet. But you are great. I have some former players here. If you guys would stand up, I'd greatly appreciate it. I know if you played for me, please stand up. Chris Hargett, I know, is here. Joe Natterman. I don't know if Paul Quinzer's here. He's the coach at Mount Vernon. Okay. Ricky Romans. I greatly appreciate all you guys. I would not be here if it wasn't for you. There's no way. And I greatly appreciate everything that you guys did. You made me a hell of a coach. And I don't think I am a hell of a coach, but you made me that way. I had some teams take me on some runs. They took me along. We made it to semi-state, we made it to state finals. I didn't do it. I got to ride on their coattails. And I greatly appreciate that. Thank you, fellas. Assistant coaches, if you'd stand up, I'd appreciate it. I have done, and I don't know them all that are here, but hopefully I got them all. Once again, I apologize if I forgot somebody. Todd Tuttero's one of my assistants now at Scottsburg. Kevin Berg couldn't make it. Jane Kendall's one of my assistants at Scottsburg. Jimmy Cardwell, Donnie Poole Jr., Clark Miles, okay, Jeff Crawford, Ricky Romans didn't stand, he already stood as a player. Aaron Marshall played for me, also was an assistant coach of mine. Doug Wacker was with me for, I don't know, 15, 18 years. Johnny Evers was at Castle. Clark Miles, Chris knows him, great guy, tremendous support. Bernie Meyer was an assistant of mine at Castle. Jimmy Williams at Boonville. My assistant coach's coach. I was an assistant coach in basketball, and I know for a lot of years I stood there and held a basketball on my arms, and if it went out of bounds, I'd throw one out, and that's what I did for 2 hours as I sat there with the ball in my hands. I think these guys have too much knowledge. They know more than I do, so I put them to work. They coach. I let my assistant coaches coach because I can't do it all. I don't know it all. And for you guys, once again, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. Thank you very much. I always gave credit wherever I was to the previous coaches that I had that preceded me at the schools. Bob Rogers was at Castle. Roger Tuggle was at Boonville. Jerry Rusk was at Jeff. Ben Bodoff at Scottsburg. I just did what they did, and I tried to continue it. I told my players at Scottsburg, there's nothing bad about what Ben Bodoff taught you. Mine just may be a little different. There's no wrong way or right way of doing this. They did it the right way. And, you know, my way just was different. Doesn't mean it was better, doesn't mean it was worse. But there's the success that I had at places was because they had good coaching before I got there. Not anything great that I did. Coach Poole, God, I thank God that you're here. It's tough following a guy like that. I mean, it is. You know, to follow a guy that was so beloved in that community and was Jeffersonville baseball. He was, I mean, there was coaches before him and there's going to be coaches after him. But being involved in this association the way I was and being around people, everybody, if you said Jeffersonville, it was Don Poole. He's been so supportive of me. We talk a lot of times. And I really thank you for being here. It really means a lot to me. He texted me earlier that said he wasn't going to be able to make it. I really appreciate it that you're here. I mean, he was so great. It's just unbelievable. And the support he gave me through my trials and tribulations, through the good times and the bad, I will never forget it. And the greatest thing is that I can call him a friend. And that's more than just being a former coach and everything. I greatly appreciate it. All the kind words he's given me, I do not deserve. I have been in great baseball communities. Newburgh, Chandler had great Little League programs, had great feeder systems, and developed these players that I had. At Boonville, Jeffersonville, Scottsburg, baseball communities, where baseball was important. And that helps you in our job. If the community thinks baseball is important, it's great. I'm telling you, you young guys, you old guys know it. It's not your coach. You have to have the support of your principals, athletic directors, community, in order to be successful. I know. I've been there when I didn't have the support. And I've been there when I had the support. And what I've learned going through was, God, it sure makes it a lot easier when you have support from your administrators. And I've had some very good administrators. Athletic directors, Tony Inzarello, when I was at Castle, Keith McKinney at Boonville, Ralph Scales is here. I would go into his office and just, my first year, we started off great. We'd won the state championship in basketball, 1993. We win the state championship in basketball. I come in as assistant basketball, head baseball coach at Jeffersonville. God, it was great. We start the season 0-7. We were 0-7. My wife, God love her, came from Boonville. She lived in Boonville, born and raised in Boonville. We were 0-5. I come home, she goes, well, did you win tonight? And I go, no, we lost, we're 0-5. She goes, we could have been 0-5 at Boonville. I go, thanks. They have a banquet for the state championship basketball team. And Charlie Feldhouse was the assistant principal, and he was in charge of introducing everything, and I was the JV coach, JV basketball coach. And he introduced me, and he said, well, we know he's a pretty good basketball coach. We're not sure about the baseball yet because we're 0-7. But I go, Charlie, I go, thanks a lot. But I can remember going into Ralphie's office and go, Ralph, I go, God, I go, we're 0-5. He goes, it's okay. Everything's going to be okay. Just relax, do your thing, and everything will be fine. And the support that he gave me in all the years, I mean, it was always great. I mean, there's still another school I would have liked to have dropped, but he wouldn't let me. And we won't say it because we didn't want to cause embarrassment to people. But I do greatly appreciate all the years that we were together. To Shannon, I mean, the same thing. I mean, I was out of Jeffersonville, and Shannon, I was working at a golf course. I was retired, I was working at a golf course, and Shannon calls me and he goes, you know, hey, we got an opening in Scottsburg. How'd you like to come up and coach baseball at Scottsburg? And I go, you gotta be kidding me. I go, do you know what happened? I go, you gotta be kidding me. I went up there with him and we just talked about it today. I mean, we spent 2.5 hours and he was talking to me about everything, pros and cons about the program. He was totally honest with me, exactly what it was gonna be like. And we talked, and once again, I went home. I told my wife, I go, I spent 2.5 hours with this guy. I go, you know, I've never felt wanted like that before. I mean, that you're in your big school and everything, you kind of, you know, do your thing and whatever, everybody kind of does their thing. But he really made me feel wanted, and it was fantastic. And Shannon, I greatly appreciate that. I mean, and I'd go into, and now I've taken his job. I'm now the athletic director. He left and went to Madison as the baseball coach. They hired me as athletic director. And I told Shannon, I go, all that year, I said, I'd sit in there in your office and talk to you for 45 minutes. I go, you didn't have time to do that. Why didn't you tell me to get out of the office so I could get to work? And he stood in there and listened to me. I had him come out and work with my catchers. I greatly appreciate it. And once again, if you don't have the support of your administration, it makes it increasingly difficult. Principals, John Wittenbreaker, Cecil Raymond at Castle, Larry Riggs when I was at Boonville, Ward Weber, Steve Morris at Jeffersonville, and my current principal, Rick Manns at Scottsburg, is fantastic. Rick went to Scottsburg High School. He knows everybody in town, and he's an ex-baseball coach, and he's a great man to work for. My superintendent at Scottsburg is Mark Slayton, great person to work, great support, and just is a great person to work for and to have support. great coaches that I've coached against. I mean, I was in this SIAC at Castle. Just fantastic coaches that were there. Paul Grease was there, Hall of Famer. Quentin Merkel, Hall of Famer, still there. I mean, and you just learn from those people. You talk to them, you see them, and you just learn things. Baseball is pretty open. I mean, everybody helps each other. The Big 8 conference when I was at Boonville with Jasper, Gibson Southern, great baseball conference. Great coaches, Ray Howard, okay, Terry Gobert, great people, great coaches, great programs. And it makes you better as a coach because you have to prepare for those people. The Hoosier Hills. For 19 years, God, you see Hall of Famers left and right. I was telling a story. My first year, I go to the Hoosier Hills baseball meeting, and there's Gary O'Neill, Lou Giovanini, Bill Pierce, guys that have been in it for years. And the coach at Bedford and I were new coaches. And both of us had come from places that played round robin. They played a conference tournament. So Joe and Clump was the coach at Bedford. We got together and said, you know, we need to play round robin instead of this conference tournament thing. So I sat down there and I go, you know, they started talking. I go, we think you should play round robin. And I remember Lou Giovanni looked at me, guy had coached for 30 years. He said, you will sit down, you will shut up, you won't say a word. We will tell you exactly what's going to happen. And that is exactly what happened. And Joe and I both shut up and sat there and we listened to what they had to say. And great coaches currently. You know, the years with Casey LeDuc and Chris McIntyre, and I mean, once again, it was a dog-eat-dog thing, and you just got after it. And you had to make your kids better in order to compete against these people. And the Mid-Southern Conference that I'm in now, you know, arguably, once again, I'm biased because I'm in that conference, but it's a great league to play in. I mean, you got great coaches, great teams, and they just battle. We're all about the same size, and we just battle and get after it. But the coaches are all great people. We get along very well, and it makes you better as a coach. I was always told that if you want to learn how to coach, you surround yourself with good people, and you attach yourself to good people. And unfortunately, Mike Broughton isn't feeling well today, and he couldn't make it. He was going to be here, but he couldn't make it. I've known Mike for 30 years. I was his assistant basketball coach at Castle before he came to Jim. I've learned so much from him about coaching, about dealing with players. We still go play golf every once in a while, and we still talk. And I'll run things off of him, and he'll run things off of me, and we'll talk back and forth. But that is true. We did talk. I did tell him. I go, this game's over. Let's talk about where we're going to eat. I go, this game's done. I've got Roy Searcy, a very good friend of mine from Jeffersonville. We go out to eat. I value his friendship. Dave Hatfield from Jeffersonville here. I value his friendship. I was very fortunate in all my years to meet a whole lot of good people. And I'm very fortunate to coach against a lot of great people. And I'll leave you with this. I don't know, Terry, did I go over? Okay, Phil Webster wanted my time. Phil wanted my time. I said, Phil, if I have any time left, you can have it. The last thing, and I guess I don't brag or anything about myself, but Leo DeRocher, and there's probably half of you probably have never heard of him, but I know Chip will, the Cub manager, many, many years ago, was with the Dodgers and everything. He always said, nice guys finish last. And hopefully, I am a nice guy, and I didn't finish last. Thank you very much.
Webster, graduating from high school in Pennsylvania and then going to Milligan College. He was a successful pitcher. Back then they used to call him a soft-throwing lefty. I had opportunity to interact with Phil in two different situations. First as a teacher at Decatur Central, where he taught after stints at Tri-West and Plainfield. I taught there for a couple years before I moved to Jasper. He spent a couple years as a freshman coach before devoting himself to teaching and the game of tennis. He's pretty good. Phil was ranked in the top 10 in the state in the over 35 age bracket. Phil marched to his own drum, and there were times it was a different drum. It still is a different drum. I also had the opportunity to be his catcher in the semi-pro ball that we played around Indianapolis. He was now a softer throwing lefty than he was in college, and I told him if it got any softer I wouldn't even need a glove. But we still managed to get him out most of the time. In the mid-'80s, he was asked to be the varsity assistant for a year and then take over the Hawks baseball program. So in the mid-'80s, he was asked to be a varsity assistant for 1 year. The success was immediate, as they won 20 games for the first time. His assistant of 23 seasons, Steve Kuzmanich, came on board in 1986, and with Phil at the helm in '87 came the first of 8 Marion County titles. The 1988 squad was the first in a string of 9 straight 20-win seasons. The semi-state title in 2008 culminated in a state championship that same year for the Hawks. Phil was noted for a lot of things. Phil was noted for his sharp wit and his ability to get under people's skin, especially umpires, and also opposing fans. When Decatur played Cedar Grove, it was just a matter of time till the fuse burnt down and the explosion took place. In this game in the late '80s, the fans and Phil, I would think they would call it now, interacting. But they were creating a rather hostile atmosphere which didn't help the young umpire doing his first really big game. And after one of the several close strike calls, Webby calls out to the young umpire, "A few more calls like that and you should invest in some property around here." To which the young umpire took umbrage to that and promptly tossed him out of the game. Asking why he got tossed, the ump told Phil he questioned his integrity. To which Phil promptly replied, "That is not so. I was just giving you real estate advice." From his assistant, Phil had the great ability to teach the game, and his success was grounded in hard work and the ability to get the most out of his players. The 172nd inductee to the Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame, Mr. Phil Webster. Would you help me welcome?
Thank you. It's a great honor to stand here and be in front of this crowd, my players, my peers that came tonight to celebrate this with me. Problem is that I'd like for you all to stand for just 1 second, please, and look under the table. I've lost my speech. I think it's... Is this on? It's on. You don't get to be where I am without having the help of a heck of a lot of people. I think there's a recipe for success. I want to run through that recipe with you and then give credit to the people who have helped me. First of all, my family. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Chip, and there's no way that you're going to win the National League Championship. The Pirates are going to, again, you're going to be the doormat in the National League. But I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, proud Steeler, Pirate, and Penguin fan. That doesn't bode very well here in Indianapolis when we're playing the Colts. But my family, my brothers, I grew up with a very loving family with my father and mother and 3 brothers. Anybody here been in a situation like that where you fight over the French fries every day and you fight over, you play ball out in the street? I mean, we were a very competitive group of people, and I learned the value of competition through that family life. My brother Rick is here, and if you'd like to stand, and his wife Kathy came all the way from Atlanta to celebrate this with me, and I really appreciate it. I have another brother by the name of Dennis, lives in Madison, North Carolina. He's a little ill right this, and wish he could be here with us tonight. I talk to him almost every night, great sports guys. Secondly, my family, my wife, Lori, if you would stand please. And I have a story to tell about her. My son Todd, who's the new Pike baseball coach. Do you stand, Todd, so everybody can see you? They can pound you when they can. My daughter Gray. Stand up, Greg, so everybody can see what a beautiful young woman you are. My wife is one of my strongest supporters. She's there. She is somebody who comes to the games and lets everybody know that we're a very good baseball team. I remember one time we were playing Ben Davis, and the umpire came walking down the third base line and says, "Coach," I said, what's the problem? I haven't been yelling at you at all. I said, "No, is that woman over there in the stands related to you?" I said, "Which one?" Today? "The one there in the first base side." I said, yeah, she's with me. "Is there any way you could tell her to calm down a little bit? Tell her I don't have to do something about it." I said, "No, you need to go over there and tell her. I'm the one that has to go home with her." But she was always there. She was always supportive. She taught me how patient you have to be a baseball coach. You know, when I would leave the house with have fun. And it's hard to have fun when you're getting your ears pinned back by 13-0, but she taught me not to bring the game home. That took a lot. I don't know about the rest of the coaches out there, but it's hard. I think the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, I think it's more the agony of defeat, and you hold on to that. And she taught me how to let that go. It took me a long time to do that, but I appreciate that very much. So you got to be able to let those losses go, and she taught that to me. Inspirational coaches. There's a bunch of them in this room. I used to hang around, listen. I was totally intimidated by Ken Schreiber. Anybody in this room intimidated by Ken Schreiber? Raise your hand if you were ever intimidated by Ken Schreiber. I used to hang around the guy, you know. I wouldn't tell him who I was. I just want to listen to him, you know. Everywhere he went, I would follow along. It was like a little shadow behind him. But those guys are the ones that inspire you. They inspire you to do great things. And I had this coach when I was in college by the name of Harold Stout. And Harold taught me how to compete. He taught me how to go out there and be prepared. And I never forgot it. We were playing Center Grove one day, and I said to my assistant coaches, Mike and Steve, I said, "We got to be prepared for this. We got to have some speed. We may find ourselves tied in the bottom of the 7th inning, and we might need some speed. We may have to steal home." So I was brushing my teeth one day, and I saw this centipede run across the counter. I said, "That's speed right there." You ever try to catch a centipede? So I offered him a scholarship at Decatur Central. And so the day of the game came, and we went down to Center Grove. Center Grove came to our place, and sure enough, bottom of the 7th, we had a tie game. And I said to Steve, I said, "Get the centipede ready. I think we're going to need him." So Steve said, I got it, coach. So I got to run. First guy triples into the gap. I got to run around third. Okay. Steve, centipede, get him ready. He's getting ready. So okay, strike 1, strike 2, strike 3. 1 out. Strike 1, strike 2, strike 3. 2 out. Got 2 out, run around third. "Steve, where's the centipede?" "He'll be there in a minute, coach. He's putting his shoes on." I get a drum here? Okay, one for the centipede joke. All right, now, I took over from a saint by the name of Bill Taylor. I wish Bill could be here tonight. Bill coached baseball at Decatur Central High School from 1967 to 1984. And was a great man. Learned a lot about him. He's one of those kind of people that you at. And Bill did a great job coaching Decatur Central High School during that time. Other people that I want to thank, When I left Decatur Central High School, I wasn't ready to quit coaching. And a guy took some faith in me and allowed me to help him with his college baseball team. I became his pitching coach. If Lance Marshall would stand up from Franklin College, I would really appreciate it. Thank you. I want to thank Lance. Thank you very much for taking faith. Franklin College is a great place. Great place. I really enjoyed the time I spent there. Also want to thank Eric McGaya, who's allowed me to hang out with his Mooresville baseball team. I'm one of his assistants, and I'm having a great time. So, Eric, thank you very much for having faith in me and letting me coach with you. You have to have a solid administration, like I said just a minute ago. You have to have people that will back you up. And I have three superintendents of schools who have taken the time out of their busy day to come and celebrate this with me. Matt Bersecki, could you stand up, and Nate Davis from Decatur Central High School. I really appreciate the support. Another superintendent, Dan Knoll. There's Dan. Dan up back there. Dan's from North Putnam, and he gave me an opportunity to coach, and I really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Dan. I appreciate it. And like I said, they have to back you up, and these people have done that. I remember we had a midnight practice, our tryouts. Yeah, we had a midnight. We tried out, and a girl showed up. Her name was Cinderella. And I had to cut Cinderella from the team. And the superintendent called me in and said, we've had some complaints. About what? I said, well, you cut this girl by the name of Cinderella. Well, I said I had to. She kept running away from the ball. So you have to have the backing of your administration. They thoroughly understood that you can't have somebody running away from the ball. So I appreciate their backing on that one. You have to have parent groups. I don't know, they haven't been mentioned much here. Parents seem to get out of the equation, but if you've got to raise money for uniforms, if you've got to have people work the concession stand, if you've got to have people that write letters for you, I've had 2 people that came tonight that have just been immeasurably helpful to me. They ran the parent groups, they raised the money, they allowed me to coach. And if Terry Henderson would stand up, he would do that for me, and Mike Stoya. Those 2 good gentlemen are here tonight, and I wish, Stan, please, I want to thank you for running those parent groups for me. Now, I've been rumored to have some problems with umpires. 3 umpires walk into a bar. You would have thought one of them would have seen it. Now that story that Steve told about the real estate advice, that's true. That's a true story. But the worst one was one night we were getting beat 5-0. And the umpire was making some questionable calls, and I knew I was right on the edge, so I didn't want to say anything. So I yelled out, I said, Charlie, we just found your cell phone in our dugout. He took his mask off and said, what do you mean, found my cell phone? How do you know it's my cell phone? It's got 5 missed calls on it. Yeah, I got tossed out of the game on that one too. No, really, umpire, I did have a rocky relationship. I'm not in many of the record books out there. And I'm suggesting to the committee here that we start a new category called official ejections from games, because I know I'm going to be #1 in that one. So I want to appeal to the committee to start that for me. The umpires, I really have grown to like them. Hard to do, but they are nice people. and I learned that when I started coaching or refereeing basketball games. I kept saying, that guy that's yelling at me from the bench, I said, am I like that? So I learned a lesson, and I want to apologize to all the umpires out there and tell them how much I really like them. I really do like them. Assistant coaches, man. These 2 guys that I'm about to ask stand up, I just love them to death. I don't know what I would have done without them. They were loyal, and that's what they teach. I mean, that's what they've given to me, loyalty, hard work. They're my friends. I love them to death. Mike Chapman and Steve Chrismanich, would you please stand? They've been with me almost the whole time. Now, you need to relax. You need relaxation too. You really need relaxation. You have to have some other thing to do other than just coach band. I've been teaching now for 51 years. And you got to get away from the kids for a while, and you got to have something else to do. So I have these golf buddies that I hang out with, the righties and the lefties. And I challenge them to practice, come play golf with me on Sunday, or on Christmas Day. Christmas Day, real cold. I said, can you come play golf on Christmas Day? Are you man enough to come and play golf on Christmas Day? No, I don't think I can get away with my wife. I said, what do you mean you can't get away with your wife? Well, I'm going to set a tee time for Christmas Day. And if you're any kind of a man, you'll be there. So sure enough, Christmas Day I get there early, and they're there before I am. Jorge Herrera, Billy Perdue, Jerry Hennessy. They're all waiting for me. I said, you guys did it, huh? Yeah, I said, what'd you have to do? Billy said, I had to buy my wife a $1,000 ring. I said, Jorge, what'd you have to do? I had to take my wife and promise to take her on a cruise. Terry, what'd you have to do? Fur coat. I said, you guys. They said, well, what did you do? I said, I went home. I said, honey, it's either sex or golf. And she said, don't forget your clubs.
That's why he's my dog.
All right. But nothing will breed you success in the players that you deal with every day. I have a family. I have about 500 sons, it seems like. I take every one of these. I love these guys to death. And we don't have the average kind of a kid. I have really tough kids. I love them to death. Guys that I coached in Babe Ruth, guys that I coached in high school. I guess I want to tell you a little bit about them and how tough they are. And I'm going to kind of equate it to a situation I had in a bar one day. I had this yellow dog. And we went into the bar and we sat at the bar and the dog looked very menacing, you know, like looked at everybody in the bar. And this dog are my kids. These are the guys I go to war with every day, players. The yellow dogs. This guy from Cathedral. I go. He came walking in and he goes, hey man, that's your dog over there, that yellow dog? Yeah, that's my yellow dog. He said, well, I got a black dog out in the truck. Think you can take your yellow dog. I said, go get your dog. So he comes walking through there. It's a great big black dog with a Cathedral emblem over its back. I said, what do you want to do? He said, I'll bet you $500 my black dog can beat your yellow dog. I said, put your money on the bar. So he put his money on the bar. I reached in my pocket. It's hard for me to come up with $500, but I laid it up there. I said, the bartender, say go, and we'll turn these dogs loose. Bartender said, go. And the yellow dog ate the black dog in 1 minute. There wasn't anything left. So the Cathedral guy says, what kind of dog is that? I said, well, I don't know. But before I painted it yellow and cut off its tail, it was an alligator. So that's the kind of guys I got. I'm going to go to war with those alligators. I love them very much. I thank you very much for this honor. It's the greatest honor of my life, and I hope everybody in this room success. Thank you.
Graduate of Munster High School, where he played both football and baseball, and then attending and played some baseball at Ball State University. Coach Schinken has been sending runners around third for 29 successful seasons, including the 2002 4A state championship, and his 30th season is just around the corner. As noted after the state title, returning home to the police and the fire department escort, streets lined with cheering kids, waving signs of congratulations. Coach said it gives one pride in knowing that you're a part of something that inspires young kids to the love of the game of baseball. Bob played and coached under another Hall of Famer, Mike Nixick. And he and Coach Nixick are the only two head baseball coaches in the history of Munster baseball. That's a pretty unique situation, to only have two head coaches in your school's history. Opposing coaches often give a perspective on a coach that is often not seen by the fans. As noted by Brian Jennings, the coach at Griffith, Bob's fairly laid back, lets the kids play, doesn't put a lot of pressure on them, kind of creates an atmosphere that really is pretty calm. And in a 2007 conference tourney championship, played at Munster, late in the game, Coach Jennings is at third base, pacing back and forth, trying to figure out how in the world he can get the tying run in with the lower part of his batting order. Coach Schinken says from the dugout, "Hey, big boy, what's the score?" Coach Jennings turns around and he looks into the Munster dugout only to see Coach Schinken with his legs propped up on the bench, arms folded, not even looking at the scoreboard. And he really meant it. What's the score? That's pretty well laid back. Coach Jennings said this about Schenk. Schenk's very humble, and he's glad in the fact that he has been around and been a mentor to him and a friend. He's the 173rd inductee to the Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame. Please join me in welcoming Coach Bob Schinken.
Thanks, Ray. I just want to reiterate the congratulations to the other recipients that I've been sharing the stage with over here. This organization is fantastic. I can remember when I first came to this banquet, and it was 30 years ago. And I can remember just coming down for the day. It was over at the old Holiday Inn over there, and what I remember about that is that the next day the Bears were playing in the Super Bowl, Super Bowl shuffle and all that stuff, and I can remember waiting for all the speakers to come out. I was looking at all the newspapers about the Bears stuff and that, and you know, kind of taking it all in, just being a young coach. Hadn't even coached the game yet, went to the state clinic the year before, because I took over from Mike Nixick, who had passed away right after his season, his last season, when he tragically died in a boating accident. He was going to go one more year, and then I was going to take it over, and somehow I inherited a team that he had that was pretty good. But in being at that banquet, I was overwhelmed. Being a young kid like this and just taking over the program, and I start looking and I see guys like Ray Howard, and I see guys like Ken Schreiber and Jim Reinbold, and not to mention a lot of the other ones, and you know, I don't want to hurt any feelings or that, but you know, I'm thinking, holy smokes, you know, look at these guys. And I went to the banquet that night, and the only time in my 30 years that I won a raffle with a raffle ticket, you know, I actually won a stringer award. I still have that stringer to this day, and I still use it 30 years later. You know, every time I look, I was like, hey, this is the start of my career. That's, you know, that's it. That's, but that's, you know, you start thinking about all the times that have happened. When I called my sons to tell them I was being inducted into the Hall of Fame, both boys said that I better thank my wife and sons first, because my journey to this podium has definitely been a family affair in a lot of ways. They couldn't have been more correct. Without the support of my wife, Laura, and my two sons, Scott and Mike, I wouldn't be standing here. I've also been fortunate to have the support of, first of all, my parents. My mom's here, my dad's not here, he's watching. He's the one that inspired me to stay with baseball, become a baseball coach. My brother is here, my daughter-in-law, my mother-in-law, and I know my father-in-law is probably up there watching with my dad right now. I've got my sisters-in-laws, my brothers-in-laws that are here, my dear friends, members of my football family, which I really appreciated them showing up. They're all here tonight to support me. I want to thank the administration of Munster High School for all the support that's come my way for the past 29 years. They supported me through my tenure in heading this baseball program, and I couldn't be luckier. I have some great athletic directors that I've gone through. Brian Clark is here with me right now. Some of you might know Mike Smith, Smitty, around from the Logansport area. He came up for the about a 10-year with us. That was really a friend. As a matter of fact, he said today that, and he retired from Munster. He moved to the Lafayette area. He says he's right by Jake Burton in the same community right there. And he says he's got his Munster flag hanging today in honor of me. So if Jake goes back there, take a look. Okay, it's hanging up over there. I'm so humbled to be part of this Hall of Fame baseball family. For me to be in this select fraternity of coaches, players, and contributors of Indiana baseball, it's something dreams are made of. I'm very proud of the fact that I'm the third member from the Munster baseball program to be a home member. Hal Morris, Hall of Fame member from 2010, his brother Bobby, they have graciously honored me by being here tonight. It really means a lot to me. As I am the only second head coach in Munster baseball history, I do join Hall of Fame member Mike Nixick in this fraternity, and having both baseball coaches members, I feel is something special. I had the honor of introducing both these men when they inducted. Yes, there were times I would dream about if ever my day would be so lucky. I can even remember when I first became head coach and attended the clinic banquet 25 years ago. My wife brought the boys and had taken them to the pool while I was listening to the speakers. She told me she struck up a conversation with a couple of coaches who were doing a little relaxing around the pool. She expressed how nice they were, and when I asked her their names, she didn't remember them, but she did point them out. All of a sudden, I took a look. I said, "Do you realize who that is?" Okay, one guy over there is Jim Reinhold. The other guy is Ken Schreiber. And I couldn't even imagine at that point Ken Schreiber knowing who I was. But for him to send me a letter to nominate me for induction into the Hall of Fame is probably one of the biggest highlights of my coaching career. I wish Ken was here tonight. I'm going to thank him publicly right now, but that's something that for me is real special. Someone once said, if you go to sleep each night, wake up each morning doing what you love, you're a success. I love what I do every day. I love and I have loved working with all my assistant and volunteer coaches throughout the years. Their loyalty, commitment has helped make the Munster program a success. I've got a couple of coaches that have been with me in a while right here, Tom Largus and John Premitz. I want to thank them. I've had some assistant coaches that have been around me now for over 20 years. They couldn't make it tonight, but they just believe in the program, and like you say, you coach with them. I let them kind of handle their own things. I let them coach, and I think that's why it's successful. I love the friendships I've made with the opposing coaches, and yeah, the umpires too. But I do love being in this baseball fraternity. You can't get a more genuine group of guys. Above all, I love the hundreds of players that I've coached in the last 29 years. I love keeping up with each one of my players. Each and every player was treated with respect. They knew that. It was not only the wins and losses that mattered in my program. They knew we had a special family. They know that they're a member of it forever. And it's with all that said, tonight I'm going to go to bed a success, and I want to thank you for this great honor of being inducted in the Hall of Fame. Thank you very much.
Jim Reed, 34 years coaching, one at Fort Branch, and then 33 years with a consolidation form called Gibson Southern. From high school in Missouri at a state championship, to Murray State at 4 years of baseball success, and also some minor league pro experience in the Cardinal organization. And then to the third base coaching box at Gibson Southern between the cornfields. Now, I may need to explain. Gibson Southern was not near anything. I came to Jasper, and one of the places we had to go was Gibson Southern to play. My first year, a city boy from Indy, coming to that part of the state, not knowing where any schools were, just get on the bus and ride. Our bus driver seemed to drive that first time almost to the Illinois line. I questioned if he really knew where we were going. He assured me he did, even after turning off what was called a main road in Gibson County and driving between cornfields to an open area, and there was the baseball diamond. I tell you, it wasn't the most inviting place to play, but you ought to see it today. Great place to play, and the thanks goes to Coach Reed and his assistants and the success of the Titans program. Many coaches here will recall, and many of you still may have to do the task of driving a bus to games. Coach Reed was driving a corporation bus, had a 65-mile-an-hour governor on it, to Rockport, to play South Spencer. Mr. Policeman followed the team bus for the last 15 miles into the town of Rockport when he finally pulled the bus over. After receiving a speeding ticket, Mr. Policeman sarcastically told Coach Reed, "Oh, by the way, good luck in today's game." The offer of luck from the policeman didn't help, as the Titans took it on the chin. As it is with most coaches, when their former players get together, there are a lot of stories. For Jar, that's Jim's nickname, one of the most often repeated is his affectionate way of telling his players to remove their heads from a certain bodily orifice so that they might be better able to think and play the game in a way that would help them and the team win. Coach had a unique opportunity that many don't get to coach against his son Scott 4 games. I believe the results are one of Coach Reed's 530 wins, and then 3 of those 390 losses are accounted for by his son Scott when he was coaching at Boonville. He's still on the short end of that stick, and it's never going to change. Scott said, "I thank my dad for sharing with me his love and passion for the game of baseball. It has been an ongoing and remarkable gift that he has shared with me and now shares with his grandson, the beautiful game of baseball. For those memories and for this gift, I am forever grateful." Help me welcome the 174th inductee to the Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame, Coach Jim Reed.
Thank you very much. I first want to apologize to the lady that I scared in the ladies' restroom while ago. I went to the wrong room. I have no idea. Next part of my speech, I'm just gonna say, want to say the same thing those 4 guys said. Thank you very much. No, I can't tell a joke like Phil did. He's great. Great job, Phil. I would like to also add my congratulations to the other 4 who've already been up here: Chip O'Neill, Al Raby, Phil Webster, and Bob Schenken. It is a great honor, and I'm so privileged to be here tonight as one of the inductees. I am very thankful for that. I want to reiterate what they said pretty much, but Four things come to my mind when I think about the things that are important to get you to this point. And first, I would like to acknowledge my great family. I try not to break down here, but I have a wonderful family, and I'd like to introduce them, and I'd like them to stand when I get done. First is my lovely wife, Sandy. I want to thank you so much for loving me and coming into my life when you did. Her son Blake could not be here tonight. He had to work. Next is my daughter, my oldest daughter, Amy. She has her twin children, Avery and Cooper, with her. And as Ray already said, my son, his wife Holly, and three children, Aubrey, Garrett, and Malia. My youngest daughter, Beth, who was quite a track and field athlete at Purdue University. Her husband, Tim, son, Kellen, son, Reed, and son, Bo, who's home with Grandma and Grandpa Lewis tonight. So we got some future baseball players coming up. I have a third of my siblings here tonight. John Reed, Art Reed, my sister Betty, and her husband Mark. Would my family please stand up with them? Just give them a hand. The second part is my assistant coaches, and I had some very good ones over the years. You got to have it. You can't be successful without them. And the first one I'll mention, talk about loyalty. He was with me for 28 years. Steve Nelson, his wife Kathy are here tonight. Also, Dan Cole and his wife Paula. Jason Blackard, Mike Okie Pryor, and our current coach at Gibson Southern. And by the way, we've only had two at our place also. Chris May and his wife Lynn. Chris, as you heard earlier, he took our Gibson Southern Tigers to the 3A state finals last year. Great job, Chris. Coaches, again, I want to thank you so much for being here tonight. Please stand. Oh, that's a group. Of course, this next one is somewhat important. You've got to have some pretty good players. And I'm fortunate tonight to have 8 of my former players here tonight. First one is my first team in 1974 at Fort Branch High School, Bruce Adams. His son, John. He's now the assistant principal and athletic director at Gibson Southern. Jason Blackard, who later became our softball coach and won 2 state softball championships while coaching. Tim Lewis, kind of fond of Tim. He's my son-in-law now. And he was my center fielder and number 3 pitcher on the team that went to state finals in 1994 when we had still had the 1 class. Also Mike Pryor, he's a history teacher and assistant AD at Gibson Southern. You see, we keep most of them at home. His brother Pete Pryor, who was catcher, he now lives in an Indianapolis area. And the 8th one is my favorite, my son Scott. He's now the principal at Gibson Southern High School. Would you, former players, please stand? And then you also have to have a few friends, in addition to all the ones I've already mentioned, that are just there when you need them. Jerry O'Brien, his wife Julie are here. Jerry coached basketball at Gibson Southern for 14 years. Did a great job. Jay Whitehead and his wife Carla, they were our neighbors when my 3 children were growing up, and they were just super to them. They just treated them like family. I owe them a great deal. Got to have administrators too, and Dr. Jim Isaacs, good friend. He was principal at Gibson Southern for about 8 years before my son took over. Jim was really great to me as principal. I would also like to acknowledge, I don't believe anybody's mentioned this tonight, got to have a good sports ride. And Gibson County has a great one. His name is Pete Swanson, and he's the sports editor at Princeton Daily Clarion. He writes really good articles. Let's give these people a, would you please stand? Hey, we're getting close to the end, right? I would be remiss if I didn't mention these other people as well. To Leonard and Ella B, Mom and Dad. They gave me so much, my brothers and sisters, all 9 of us. That's how I learned to play baseball. We had enough to make a team. Yeah, that's just to my first wife, Sue, for 27 years, mother of my children, thank you so much for your love and support. And again, to my administrators and all our great Titan fans, I want to thank, of course, the IHSBCA and the Hall of Fame committees, especially the Veterans Committee, and especially 3 members of that committee who Ray Howard, Tim Nante, and Paul Greaves. It was very enjoyable coaching against these guys for many years. It was hard to beat them, but we had great respect for one another, and I'm proud to say that I now am a member of the Hall of Fame along with them. Tim, I just want to thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to coach 5 years with you at Princeton American Legion. We had a lot of fun, and had some good teams and great kids. Last of all, next, I would like to thank my Little League coaches, my grade group coaches, but especially my high school coach, Chip. You'll like this. He was in the Cubs organization. I think he actually got to play a couple years with them, and he played my favorite position, third base. Name of Leon Brinkoff. Great guy. And my college coach, I went to Murray State University, and you could not ask for a greater person to play for, by the name of Johnny Reagan. You want to talk about class, he was class. I learned an awful lot from Coach Reagan, and I wouldn't dare leave up here without mentioning him. All of these guys increased my love for the game, which was very, very great. I just love the game of baseball. The last thing I want to thank is my most important, and that's my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. God Almighty. Thank you, Lord. Now, a few thoughts and I'll be done and we can move on. So baseball, as I probably mentioned earlier, it's so much fun for me to play. I enjoyed it tremendously. Very fortunate, I had a lot of success, both as an individual and as team-wise. So I say, I just love playing baseball. But you know, you can't play baseball forever. So the next best thing to it is coaching baseball. Because you get to stay young, being around all those kids, seeing their love for the game, and just trying to help them out a little bit. And I was very fortunate to be able to coach for as long as I did, and I'm so grateful for that. To be recognized as a Hall of Famer is just icing on the cake. I thank you so much. God bless.
To continue a tradition that we've done in past years, we have 5 Hall of Famers who have caps that they're going to bring to the new inductees. Do we have those 5 Hall of Famers? This will make it official. If you can find that inductee, if you will now present this cap to the new 2015 class of Hall of Famers. Congratulations.
Congratulations to our class of 2015. If you all will look inside your cover of your program, we have a tradition that we've been doing since 2004. Closing remarks by Jeanette Dunn, who was the granddaughter of the inductee of Lou Krieger at 2004 banquet, wrote this about her grandfather. It's called Baseball Heroes. Some people think that baseball is just a game. They are wrong. Baseball is about reaching deep inside yourself to catch the ball that can't be caught and hit the pitch that can't be hit. It's about the soul. Baseball is about bad hops, bad breaks, bad throws, and bad calls. It's about striking out and making errors. It's about overcoming all those things. Baseball is about kids who become stars, stars who become heroes, and heroes who become legends. Thank you very much.
Yeah. This time we're going to go through the raffle. We'll do it as quickly as we can.